Right, so it's time for a little bit of story time, and we are looking at Shine. Shine, of course, was written by myself and Dr. Andy Cope, the UK's first ever Dr. Happy, Doctor of Happiness. What a cool thing to be. And I'd like to share a little bit of Shine with you today, if that's okay. Now, Time magazine's person of the 20th century would have been consigned to the dustbin of history if we had focused on his failings. Now, when our celeb was growing up, he was referred to as the dopey one, and he struggled with words to the point that his family feared that he would never actually learn to speak. So, can you guess who it is that we've written about in Shine? Time magazine's person of the 20th century. He struggled at school, with one teacher telling him he would never amount to anything and was wasting everyone else's time. He muddled through college with uneven grades, and he struggled to find a job. This guy wanted to be a teacher, but it took him 9 full years to land his first teaching job. 9 years. And as if all these weaknesses weren't enough, he was unbelievably absent minded. Famously, this particular superstar couldn't even remember his own phone number. Any ideas of who we're talking about yet? Keep thinking. Now, this is hardly the stuff of comic books, but of course, all we've talked about so far are his weaknesses, which sometimes we do in life. Fortunately, he didn't focus on his weaknesses, but his strengths. His strength lay in creative thinking, imagining thought experiments that involved theoretical physics. Now, don't let me lose you just because I've mentioned theoretical physics. Rather than thinking in words, he thought in pictures. He imagined what things would look like if he were to travel on a bullet at the speed of light and whether space might curve. So the distance between 2 points is not necessarily a straight line. I have a feeling you probably know who we're talking about right now. And of course, with his incredible imagination, this particular individual proved the existence of atoms, and he dreamt up science's most famous equation ever, E equals mc squared. With his brilliant thoughts, he revolutionised science. So guess what? Einstein was like you and me. Genius at some things and spectacularly bad at others. Fortunately, he worked hard to develop his strengths and didn't let his weaknesses hold him back. And that's what made him stand head and shoulders above the rest. Now remember, here we're talking about achieving great things, and of course you would never get to achieve great things just by plodding along. But sadly, with our preoccupation in fixing weaknesses, it sometimes does a bit of a hatchet job in diminishing the strengths on the other side. What we don't want to do is create a whole load of averageness, where no one actually ends up being outstanding at anything. So I have some questions for you to be thinking about, okay? Here's what I want you to think about. Now these questions, like I say, from Shine, written by myself and Andy Cope, available to order online and in all good bookshops. This is all about unleashing your inner strength. So here's some questions for you that I would like you to take time to answer. The first one is, what are you good at? Okay, so I want you to think about what are you good at. So you can pause the video, scribble it down, or scribble down all the questions and then do it later or whenever. It's entirely up to you. Question 1, what are you good at? Question 2, what are you great at? Question 3, what are the things you find effortless? So what are the things you find effortless? And question 4, what and or who gives you energy? Okay, so I want you to do them first. Now, then what I'd like you to do once you've done this is reflect on the questions that you've got there. And I want you to think, what are your strengths? Based on what you've written down for the questions, what actually are your strengths? And if you can't think of the answer, maybe if you think along the lines of, if you were to ask your best friend what your strengths are, what would they say? And that's sometimes a nice way to get that going. And then once you've done that, I've got 4 more questions for you. And that is, what do they look like in action? Your strengths. What do they look like in action? Give an example of when you use them. How can you use them more? And what would happen if you did, you superhero you?